Hey guys, Native America Tatanka. You're listening to We Are Wrestling Old School versus New School. It's again Native America Tatanka. Peace. I'm out.
Stick to what you know how to do best. That's talk into that and sign checks. Leave the rest on to me, Daddy.
Up goes Blanchard. My hard-earned tax money.
1, 2, 3, guaranteed victory.
It's always you, Brett.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
If you smell what the Rock is cooking.
I can tell you it's going to be a day that I'm never going to forget.
A lot of things I want to get off my chest.
What is up? We are Wrestling Maniacs out there worldwide. I'm the host with the most, the best one, Donnie, here with
Chaz Smith. What is up? We are Wrestling Maniacs.
and this is a brand new episode of Old School versus New School. So, before we get into our topic for today, if you're not, We Are Wrestling Maniac yet already, and you're not a part of the thousands of subscribers, the best way to support us is by hitting that subscribe button now, turning on the post notifications. Videos be coming out of nowhere like an RKO, and of course, you already know, the grind is real. And today, what are we going to be talking about, Chazzy Smith?
All right, Donnie. Today we're going to be talking about managers. Because, let's face it, it seems like back in my the old school era, managers were a constant. They made the storylines. I mean, they helped them along. They took bumps, and today there's just not. I mean, they're coming back. They're starting to slowly make a comeback, but it's not like it was. Not like, in my opinion, anyways.
And honestly, I do got to agree with you on that take there when it comes to managers, because nothing beats old school when it comes to, having that manager or valet by the wrestler side. Because back then, a lot of the characters that were established and created, they needed to have those mouthpieces by their side to really, take their careers off. Because I feel like Undertaker wouldn't have been where Undertaker is now if it was with Brother Love.
No.
If he, but having Paul Bearer
Yes.
by his side, I think really made such a huge difference in his career and why we were able to have this evolution of The Undertaker for all these years.
Absolutely, because he couldn't talk for himself, really. I mean, he did a little bit, but for the most part, managers, like you said, were a mouthpiece. A lot of the wrestlers were from, either couldn't speak English or, they were like beasts or, had crazy gimmicks and they just, couldn't talk, and so they needed that manager there for him.
And that's the thing, I feel like in today's wrestling, a lot of these guys are very talented in the ring, very talented, but they're missing the manager. Some of them could really use a mouthpiece to really elevate them and take their careers to the next level.
Absolutely. Because, and you're 120% right. And you know why? Because I'll tell you what else is missing. And the reason you're saying that is because what's also missing is promos. These wrestlers have hardly little to no promo skills at all.
You see here, that's where I'm going to somewhat disagree. I feel like the promo work is not the problem. Some of the guys should not talk on a microphone. But I think majority of the wrestlers when they have the freedom to cut a promo and they're not being scripted like Vince McMahon, I feel like they definitely can cut a great promo. And I think we've seen that with AEW, and we're starting to see it now with Triple H running WWE.
Yeah, if it's not scripted, yes, I give you that. Yeah.
Because for me, I feel like the only reason why I prefer new school over old school when it comes to promos is not because of the characters, because I will always say that old school had better characters. But when it comes to the promos nowadays, and I think a lot of it maybe has to do with the Attitude Era, I feel like it comes off not cartoony. It comes off more real.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
If that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I liked the mid 80s to late 90s, you know, because 1993 or late 92 to 93 is when it really, like, the new generation WWF is when it really started getting cartoony.
Yeah.
And like with Doink the Clown, and, you know, believe me, you know what? I would still take all that over not having characters, but it became really kind of like silly. It became like a big, because of the 90s with all the flashy colors. And, you know, I mean, look at what they did with Crush, you know, going from Demolition to then going to that, wearing that stupid bright orange and yellow. I mean, he just looked, it was just.
Yeah, it was like yellow and like purple.
And yeah, it was anyways.
Don't get me wrong, like, looking back now, I do appreciate, you know, the cartoon 90s.
Oh, now I can because of the stuff
like,
nowadays.
I feel like in the time, it must have sucked.
Yeah. Yeah. Compared to what we had. Yes, it did. Mm-hmm. It was like, oh, gosh, are you kidding me?
Yeah. So I say, you know, we start this off with some of the old school managers that really, you know, stood out to you. Like some of your favorites, would you say?
Oh, I'll give you my top three right off the bat. First and foremost, and I think this is, in my opinion, on probably in the top three greatest minds, top five, top three for me, but top five probably realistically greatest minds in professional wrestling, period. Bobby the Brain Heenan. Then you had Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, who, listen, Jimmy Hart not only was a manager, he was, I mean, there's guys you couldn't picture him without, like Honky Tonk Man. I mean,
Rhythms
the
and
Hart
Blue
Foundation. Who's that?
Rhythms and Blue.
Yeah, Rhythm and Blues, you know. Then you know, but he also was right there with Jim Johnston. Jimmy Hart had a lot of hands-on in recording a lot of the old theme songs, which people don't know. Look at the Shawn Michaels song. It was Jimmy Hart singing those backup vocals.
He's a
in
sexy
that song.
Boy. Sexy
Yep.
boy.
Sexy boy. You know, and then he also did backup vocals with Cyndi Lauper on Real American.
Yes, and that's something too. I feel like without Jimmy Hart, Hulk Hogan would not be where he was at, because when Jimmy Hart was a face and he was a good manager at the time, Hulk Hogan, I felt like, needed Jimmy Hart, and Jimmy Hart needed Hulk Hogan.
Yes, it was a perfect storm, because they both, at their times, their careers were kind of like taking a little bit of a, and then they both picked each other up. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Fun fact about Real American, by the way, when the album came out, it was originally written for the U.S. Express, which is Mike Rotunda and Barry Windham.
Wow.
Yep.
It's crazy how, like, things happen, because I even, like, talking about New School, like, in 2006, they tried changing Randy Orton's theme, or it was 2006 or 2007. They tried changing Randy Orton's theme song, and he actually came out to CM Punk's This Fire Burns for, like, one Monday Night Raw, and it didn't really work out for him.
Right.
That, like, a certain talent, they try to do something, and it doesn't work. But then, like, they change the plans, and, like, it's history.
Oh, yeah. Actually, speaking on that same kind of vein, if you watch one of the old Hulk Hogan, he was working out, getting ready for some match. And his theme music in the background for the montage was if you listen to it, it's actually what became Jake the Snake Roberts theme song.
Wow. Absolutely nuts.
Yep.
But I gotta say, like, when it comes to, like, old school, one of, the managers for me that really stand out has gotta be, and I know he wasn't really, like, WWF that much, but he did some stuff in there, and he has a very good podcast, Mr. Jim Cornette.
Oh, yes.
That is one guy I gotta say, like, for me is one of my favorite old school managers because it does not get legitimate heat like that.
Love me some corny. Yes.
Because wasn't his character from like my perspective of like seeing like how they, built his character, he was supposed to be like this rich snobby like guy.
Yes.
And that's why he had like the tennis racket
Yep.
with him and the the big glasses.
Yep.
And he was just obnoxious.
Yep. He was basically a rich kid, and his mother used to always pay for everything. Like when they had one of the pay-per-views for during NWA, they had the scaffold match. Yeah. Remember I was telling you about that with the Road Warriors versus the Midnight Express? Mm-hmm. His mom actually paid, kayfabe, actually paid for the scaffold so they could practice and climb up and get used to the scaffold before the pay-per-view. So
that's the thing I loved about Jim Cornette was he was so over the top with it. And I remember some of like, the new generation 90s, he at one point was with Yokozuna and Owen Hart. Yep. I wasn't really a big fan of that, but I know why they did it because, they wanted to have the mouthpiece because obviously, Mr. Fuji can't really, cut a promo that can really translate to the audience as much as Jim Cornette. So they wanted that legitimate heat, which I understand. But I also really like this little storyline they did towards like late 97 into 98 with, the NWA with Jeff Jarrett and Jim Cornette. I thought that was a really good pairing, and I felt like that kind of ended a little too soon.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Wasn't the Midnight Express also in WWF in 98?
Yeah, they tried the new Midnight Express with Bob Holly, and it was just that was a dumpster fire. That was terrible.
Like LOD 2000?
Yeah. Oh, it was stupid. But
that's the thing with Jim Cornette. Like, he was so good at pissing people off.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
And that's the thing about especially the South, because they actually wrestling fans, believed, but in the South, I've listened to him tell stories about how, and other people who I've listened to tell story, backing it up, telling stories that, he used to have security because they'd almost would get, death threats and stuff on a daily.
That.
Yeah. So it was crazy.
They would have to escort them out of the building and they had to be extra precautious with him. And
that's heat, bro. That's heat.
Yeah. And that's before kayfabe, right?
Oh, way before. I mean, that was when kayfabe was that's when it was true kayfabe. That's before kayfabe got broken. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that was, he definitely did his job. If you're a heel and you're pissing people off, you're doing your job. So
absolutely. And there's a lot of stories too, speaking of new school, and why I love and I appreciate MJF so much, because before getting signed with All Elite Wrestling and when he, first started doing stuff, he actually had to be, escorted and stuff because he really pissed people off because not only on screen he played the character, he played it outside of, before the shows even started.
Oh, we know that firsthand. I mean, he lives that character. I saw a thing with him with this 9-year-old girl. I mean, it's in the it's in the thing with a 9-year-old
MJF
girl when
Try
he
Not
was
to
like,
Laugh compilation.
yeah, when he's telling the girl, she goes, he's like, a Fozzy shirt, that's what we're gonna wear, and she goes, well, it's better than that stupid scarf, and he's like, you probably paid $9. He goes, well, if your dad paid $9 for a condom 10 years ago, he would have been a lot happier. Not right now.
But you see, that's the problem though with like new school, and like I gotta back you up with old school here. I miss when people stayed in character.
Absolutely.
Like MJF, there's a reason why this man gets $30,000 right on the spot for an appearance.
Absolutely.
There's a reason why MJF is so successful and people are friggin' not even calling him a Miz wannabe anymore. He's MJF.
No.
Because he puts in the work to be MJF.
Yes, he does.
And that's the thing I really miss. Like, I miss when, like the heels were legit heels.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but like when they used to come to here to town in Springfield, like the heels would stay at one hotel, and the like there's the Sheraton and then the Hilton,
yeah,
or the Marriott. The heels would stay at one hotel and the faces would stay at another hotel.
Yeah, and also too, back then didn't if you're like in a storyline with somebody, you can't be with them.
Oh,
If
no.
You
Heels
have to
did
stay
not
far, far away.
Heels did not travel with faces. Faces did not travel with heels. There was a big controversy about that during WrestleMania 3 when Iron Sheik and Hacksaw Jim Duggan got in trouble, got busted for marijuana and cocaine. They got caught together, and there was a big thing about that. And that was obviously way before internet, and it's still. And Hacksaw got fired for that. He got let go for a little while.
That is nuts.
Yeah.
So who are some other managers that stand out to you?
I gotta say, one of my first manager who actually had made wrestling what it is today, if it wasn't for him, I think for me, I think the rock and wrestling era is what started. Hulkamania is what today's wrestling stemmed from.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which it was Captain Lou Albano, Cyndi Lauper, Rowdy Roddy Piper, and Hulk Hogan. That was the rock and wrestling era, with the Mr. T and everything. That's what started. So Captain Lou, he made it 16 tag team champions. I mean, he was a wrestler himself. So, he definitely stood out. I mean, like you mentioned before, Mr. Fuji, he was great. He was also he was also held the tag team championship a few times himself.
And he also managed Yokozuna, and Yokozuna had one of, the most successful WWE title runs in the 90s.
Absolutely. But look at Fuji also managed Demolition. They were, until the New Day, they were the longest reigning WWF/WWE longest reigning tag team champions in history.
Well, now the Usos took that from
now the Usos got it.
Now the New Day.
Yeah, now the Usos got it. So,
Are you feeling Usi today, Chaz?
I am feeling a little bit Usi, a little juicy and Usi.
So one manager that I really want to learn about, because of course I'm more into like the 90s and the 2000s, and of course, I follow the wrestling now.
Yeah.
But I'm not really familiar with, like the 80s and like the 70s. And one manager that a lot of old school people talk about, and you were talking about this with me before we started recording the episode, I really want to learn and like hear some stuff about the late great Freddie Blassie.
Oh, you pencil neck geek. Freddie Blassie.
Because I've seen a lot of incredible cinematic shots of him. I remember, like, in Ruthless Aggression, I think it was for, like, the Armageddon theme song, like, The End.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing, like, a black and white, like, empty, like, ring in, like, this gym, and like Freddie Blassie like sitting on like the bleachers.
I remember that picture. That's a great shot.
That
Yes.
iconic, video.
Yes, that's
shot.
iconic. Absolutely. Blassie was actually a wrestler himself. He was a mean heel. But he was so flashy and he called himself classy, but he just wore these like he looked like he came out of like a Florida like a retirement home or something, like, and he carried the cane. And the best stuff to see with him is there's this show on the network. It's called TNT. It was Tuesday Night Titans, and Vince McMahon actually hosted it. It was like a talk show, like a Tonight Show type style thing. And the wrestlers used to come out and they do interviews, and there's some iconic stuff with Lou Albano and Classy Freddie Blassie. But one of my earliest memories of Blassie is when he managed Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik, and when they got the belts, from the U.S. Express, from Mike Rotunda and Barry Windham, and then dropped it to or no, it was the other way around. I'm sorry, but then they dropped them to then they dropped the belts to Valentine and Beefcake, and then he was hilarious. And then when he sold the contract to Slick because he couldn't, it was just some great stuff. I mean, great stuff with him.
Yeah,
and he always had that.
A lot of people on their rankings and stuff, they have Freddie Blassie in like their top 5 and like
absolutely,
Rush,
absolutely.
He is what's that called?
Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmores of managers.
120%, definitely. He had a great gimmick. He had a great character. He wasn't just. I mean, he could talk. He could put you down. He was like. He was so quick-witted. That was the thing about the managers back then. Everybody was so quick-witted. Like look at Bobby Heenan. I mean, the man was like, Arn Anderson has said a million times how funny he was. The funniest guy he's ever met in his life. Like he always had an answer for everything. Like, and that was the same thing with Blassie. I mean, he would put you down in a heartbeat. And what I loved about managers back then, they always had something. They always had a gimmick. Like Blassie had the cane, Jimmy Hart had the megaphone, and it always came into play. Yes,
and also, I do want to add, Paul Bearer had the urn.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. See?
Cornette had the racket.
Yep. Oh, fun fact about Blassie. People don't notice. Probably real old school people. He actually managed in 1980 a young heel Hulk Hogan.
Wow.
Yep.
That is nuts.
Yep.
But one guy that you did mention not that long ago was Bobby the Brain Heenan.
My favorite. My all-time favorite.
And I want to talk about Bobby the Brain Heenan a little bit because, of course, I've, done my research and I've gone, back old school with, the 90s with the new generation WWF. And I remember a couple moments in 93. You had the first Monday Night Raw where I believe Bobby Heenan got kicked out. He got fired, so he was in disguises, trying to get back in the building.
Dressing up like the woman.
The old school segments they did there was so entertaining.
Yes.
But the one thing that really stood out to me the most with Bobby the Brain Heenan had to be WrestleMania 9 when they have,
the camel.
They had the dun, da-da-dun, da-da-dun. And you have Macho Man friggin' having, the grapes. And, then you have Bobby the Brain Heenan struggling to friggin' ride the camo to the ring. That was one of my favorite moments in WrestleMania 9.
When you mentioned, when we were talking about that earlier.
I thought the man was wearing a diaper.
And then he said he was supposed to, that they were supposed to switch, that Macho Man was supposed to come out in the camera. That was a great thing. Bobby Heenan always took so much guff from everybody, and I'll tell you what, he was a good wrestler. He was actually could work. Heenan could work. He was not only just funny. I mean, that man could bump. He was a bumping machine. I mean, even though he hurt his neck in that Ken Patera, when Ken Patera and him had that debate on Wrestling Challenge, because he when Patera took him and swung him around, so when he was wearing that thing, he really did have a bad neck. It wasn't just kayfabe.
And I remember him also like managing Andre the Giant around the time, being like Andre's mouthpiece against Hulk Hogan in that iconic Mania match.
Dude, when that happened, that was one of the most iconic, top 5 most iconic moments when Andre turned heel. I remember that vividly, watching that on Saturday morning. It was 3 weeks. It was set up that Jesse Ventura was interviewing. It was on Piper's Pit. They came out with the trophy. They had the trophy for Andre for his 15 years of, being undefeated and whatever. And then they brought another one out for Hogan, and the one for Hogan was bigger.
Yeah.
So it was, you could see what it was is they were building up. And this was what was so freaking amazing about the WWF back then, is they built that up, and slowly you could see the camera shots and the angles, and they slowly built that you could see Andre slowly getting, kind of getting upset, even though him and Hogan were like the best of friends.
Yeah, because I remember Andre used to wear like the yellow trunks like Hogan.
Yep. And he actually, when Hogan beat the Iron Sheik for the title in '84, Andre was there and poured the champagne over his head. That was another iconic moment. And Hogan's parents were there, and
I think it was one of the best decisions turning Andre heel at this time, because wasn't he not like undefeated too?
Yeah. Yep. And it was amazing. Nobody saw that. I remember that, and I was like, wow. Then the next week when he came out, as with Heenan was there, and then he said, he goes, Andre, and then he goes, well, Hogan, if you don't believe that, maybe you'll believe this. And he goes, I'm telling you right now, I want to challenge you for a championship match at the WrestleMania. And, Jesse Ventura, just his look on his face, and, the announcers just sold it. I mean, it was just brilliant. The storylines were fucking amazing back then.
I think like Bobby the Brain Heenan, definitely deserves to get the respect that he deserves.
Oh, absolutely.
For the work that he's done. It's
absolutely.
incredible.
I mean, people when they think of Andre, they associate him with Heenan. All the guys that were with Heenan were so fitted so perfectly.
Wasn't at one point Mr. Perfect?
I was just going to say when I said that was my segue. I said everybody that was with Bobby Heenan was fitted so perfectly.
The Heenan
Mr.
family.
You can't, the Heenan family. You can't picture, it's like you can't picture anybody else with him. Look at one of my favorites, the Brainbusters. When they came in,
Tully and Arn Anderson, right?
Yeah, because they had that move, and it was it was a brain buster, and he was Bobby Heenan was the brain, so they were the Brain Busters. It was just such a perfect fit. Everybody that he was with, a lot of managers had that, like Honky Tonk Man. You can't picture him without Jimmy Hart. I can't.
Seriously. I definitely have to agree with that 100%. But one guy I want to get into that was, a part of Old School, and we talked about him a little bit in the beginning, but also was a big part in, like, my childhood because of the Attitude Era, and he had, a very good run there. Got to talk about Paul Bearer.
Oh, yes.
Because friggin' this man... Honestly, for me, out of all the managers that we're going to be talking about here, Paul Bearer, for me, is my favorite manager of all time.
Nice.
Hands down, because with, the Dead Man, at first they had Brother Love, and I really didn't understand it. And I know you probably have more insight on that.
No, I agree with you that it was a little hokey.
Was it because they were looking for like a pallbearer at the time and they just had Brother Love do that? Like, what's the backstory behind that?
It was because at the time, what he was doing is he was bringing, he was going to be his manager full time, but Bruce Pritchard did not want to leave his position. He didn't want to go on the road.
Oh, for like creative.
They were
like
going to put them together permanently. So somehow Pritchard found Paul Bearer.
Yeah, because didn't Paul Bearer work at like a funeral parlor?
He was actually a funeral director.
Yeah.
For real. He was actually a funeral director. That's why he's the one, when they always had the segments with the caskets, like when he put the Ultimate Warrior, another classic, segment, in the casket. And that he was the one who always got the caskets from, so.
Yeah. But what I really liked about Paul Bearer, the thing I really liked was like the character growth, because I feel like it's so underappreciated, and maybe there are some wrestling podcasters out there that have talked about it, but I feel like it really goes like under like the graveyard, because with Paul Bearer, the thing that I find, like, I loved how like the urn gave the Undertaker power.
Yes.
It was cartoony, but at the time it worked.
You know what?
Which I loved.
It was, but
exceptional.
The way it was cartoony, but it was the way, and I'm going to tell you why it worked for me is because of the way that the Undertaker sold it. That's the way 100%, he did it.
Because the man's always stayed in character until he decided to
retire.
Oh yeah,
he was the Undertaker. Just like MJF, we were talking about MJF. He was the Undertaker. He said he went through a bad depression with that for a while because that's we can get to that in another episode.
Absolutely. We're going to have to do a whole episode on the Undertaker.
Absolutely.
Because he was old school and new school.
Yeah.
But with Paul Bearer, getting back to it, I also loved in 96 when he turned on the Undertaker and joined Mankind. I'm sure a lot of people didn't like that because, of course, Undertaker's always been by Paul Bearer's side, but at the time, they needed to have the change. They already had their successful run. Undertaker, won the WWF Championship with Paul Bearer. They had that classic rivalry with Yokozuna.
Yep.
And in 96, I think Mankind, having Paul Bearer by his side, that was a great decision.
Uncle Paul.
Push Mankind.
Yep. It was good.
At the time.
They did. They needed that change. And that was one thing that they were great about back then. That the staff that they had, the group that they had, they knew when enough was enough, when they knew when to back off on something and, and to 100%. Write something else in.
Because the problem is nowadays they either go too fast with it or they take forever.
Yeah. They'll do something to death.
Yes.
There's no long-term storytelling. And that's another episode. We can do that. The long-term booking. I mean, they got to take their time. They got to take their time a little more with these storylines, like the Andre and Hogan build-up and like the Macho Man, Ricky Steamboat build-up to WrestleMania 3. It was beautiful. And I think top 2 storyline build-up was Hogan and Macho Man.
The Mega
It
Powers.
went from, the Mega Powers. Went from WrestleMania to WrestleMania. It went from 4 to 5. The Mega Powers united, and then the Mega Powers exploded. It was brilliant.
So now back to Paul Bearer real quick.
Yep.
Honestly, my favorite time of Paul Bearer's managing work had to be in 97 bringing in Kane. That was absolutely iconic.
I was going to ask you about that, how you felt about that.
Here's how I felt about it, coming new school a little bit into the new school. I thought that this was the best Paul Bearer because in 97, of course, we saw the Attitude Era become, in WWF. There was no more cartoon stuff. It was all reality based because of course their rivals WCW at the time had the NWO, so they needed to go more reality.
Yep.
And I think this Paul Bearer we had was more reality. We had the backstory to like Undertaker and Kane.
Yep.
Like saying that Kane, was in the fire, but he never died.
Yep.
And then having, the whole Hell in the Cell match with Michaels and Undertaker at, I think it was Bad Blood, right?
Yep.
Or In Your House. And then, Kane and Paul Bearer come out and, Undertaker does not want to fight his brother. And then, Kane at these pay-per-views continue to screw the Undertaker up, and they have that iconic match at 14.
No, it was the Valentine's Day thing.
Was from Paul Bearer.
Yep.
Because Undertaker and Kane didn't really do the talking.
No. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's my favorite. Even though I was old school, Attitude Era was very big for me too. I love the Attitude Era. That's when I stopped watching wrestling for a while because of the from 92 to because it started getting cartoony.
What about WCW? Did you watch that during?
I kind of went back and forth with it a little bit, and I loved the NWO stuff, but when Stone Cold, I think the moment that WWF when the Attitude Era started really was when Stone Cold did the Austin 316 says I just kicked your ass, whooped your ass thing. I think that's what started it. And then of course for me, my favorite part of the Attitude was DX, but definitely my favorite moment too was Paul Bearer with Kane. That was so perfect. Another fun fact, another Chaz fact, Paul Bearer or Kane, the Undertaker was supposed to be his original name when it was pitched to him was supposed to be Kane the Undertaker.
Wow.
Yep.
I love how they always did complicated names, and it was always the simple ones that always went through.
And I'm glad that better heads prevailed, and you know what I mean, that they were able to kind of talk them out of it, and so.
No! How is Nickelodeon Guts number 5? Wow! I'm very glad too. So now we talked about a lot of, the old school managers. And before we get into new school, I do want to talk about some of the best valets. The women who used to manage, some of, the guys.
Okay.
I definitely want to cover, both old school and new school with this and talk about it for a little bit. It doesn't have to be too long. Sure. But I feel like we definitely need to, shed light on, on the females like, Miss Elizabeth and Maurice and, even though she's getting into a lot of legal trouble now, Sunny and even, Melina.
Yes.
I feel like we really need to, shed some light and talk about these 4 women because they were great valets, in their time.
Absolutely. Miss Elizabeth, top, I think the most iconic valet, even though they called her, they said when they announced her, he said it was the manager. But
greatest valet of all time is friggin' Miss Elizabeth.
Yeah.
She's
absolutely
on another pedestal.
Absolutely. But the funny thing was though, she never spoke. You know what I mean? You very rarely heard her speak, but she was so iconic. I mean,
but here's why she was so iconic, Chaz. The reason Miss Elizabeth was so iconic was because she was, the first lady in wrestling.
Yep.
And if it wasn't for Miss Elizabeth, we would have never gotten the Mega Powers storyline.
Yep.
Macho Man would not be where he's at in the industry without, Miss Elizabeth, because they had such a beautiful love story. that wedding in SummerSlam
Oh,
91, was it?
Yeah, absolutely incredible.
One of the most iconic moments in the 90s.
Absolutely incredible.
And Miss Elizabeth, like, she didn't really have to say much. Her
No.
being there made the storyline so much more interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Because it added a new element to it.
Yep. Just when like George Animal Steel, when he was like enthralled with her and like, kidnapped her, and that was such great
Jake the
stuff.
Snake Roberts and Macho Man.
Yeah. Yeah.
He would try to torment her.
Yep. Yep. What you probably, I don't know if you know this, but before Miss Elizabeth came in, they had all the managers, when Macho Man first showed up, every week they showed they have a clip of all the managers around the ringside. Every week Macho Man would wrestle, right?
Yeah.
They would show in the aisle, they would show Bobby Heenan, Mr. Fuji, Jimmy Hart, Captain Lou, or
Also,
no,
like,
actually
like
Classic
to,
Freddie
like, recruit
Blassie.
him.
Huh?
They were like trying to like recruit him.
Yes, they were trying to get him, and they were all discussing. And so finally they were like, they would do separate interviews and say, we're going to get Macho Man. I'm going to get Macho Man. So he finally comes out and says, Macho Man finally, after all these weeks of this build up, he says, I'm not going with any of you. He goes, I'm going to introduce my new manager. And all the guys are like, yeah, it's going to be me. And he goes, and he points to the back of the arena, and this door opens, and in comes Miss Elizabeth. And it was amazing.
And she always had, the best dresses too.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yep. Just like
It's
the
so
robes.
Sad. It's so sad to her, not being around. Like, she died really young.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a sad.
And another old school valet I do want to, give some, respect to, Sensational Sherry.
Oh my good gosh.
The work that she did, with Shawn Michaels, like with the first Heartbreak Kid.
Yep.
I feel like Shawn Michaels would not be where he's at today without having Sensational Sherry by his side.
She was a women's champion. She was amazing. That she bumped. I mean, she would take hits from the men. Sherry Martel was very, very underrated. I'll tell you that right now. She was incredible. I'm proud of you for bringing that up, because she was amazing, absolutely amazing.
All right, and another one too that I don't want to talk about too much because of the controversy and behind, like, with all the crap going on with like the alcohol, and could be facing a very long time in jail for her latest DUI. Sunny.
Yeah. Can't take away what she did, though. You can't take away. I mean, her personal stuff aside, she did have some iconic moments. I mean, she managed Billy and Bart, the Smoking Guns, to 2 or 3 tag team title reigns.
Yeah.
The LOD 2000.
That's like where I remember her the most from, because of WrestleMania 14.
Yep.
Her coming out with, the LOD 2000.
Yep. Her, when she first came out, it was with Chris Candido and Tom Pritchard.
Yep, and that's where I was going to say real quick.
The Body Donnas.
The only thing I gotta say is the best thing that Sunny brought to professional wrestling was Chris Candido.
Yes.
One of, the most underrated, wrestlers out there.
He was.
And it sucks, that he passed away young as well.
Yeah.
But he was, one of the best, wrestlers in the wrong time.
He was a great worker. He really was. For him to be working with,
I think she brought to wrestling.
For him to be working with Dr. Tom Pritchard, I mean, he doesn't work with garbage. I mean, Pritchard, coaches a lot of wrestlers. He trains a lot of wrestlers. So, Shane McMahon. I mean, come on. So, but another one I'm going to bring up, I don't think we thought about when you were talking about controversy, is woman, aka Nancy Benoit.
Oh, yes. She did used to be Chris Benoit's valet, right?
Yeah. And then she did some work with the NWO. And she also did some stuff with Tully Blanchard. She was with Tully.
Yep.
And yeah, that
she did a really good job too as a valet.
She
and
was
I feel like the
incredible.
reason why she doesn't get the respect that she deserves, and I'm glad that Dark Side of the Ring gave her the respect that she deserves, is because of the whole Chris Benoit incident.
Yeah.
People forget about Nancy Benoit and what she did for the business in, the 90s.
Absolutely. If I'll tell you, go back and watch some of the old NWA stuff or early WCW. She was a great valet. I mean, she got right involved. I mean, she used to take her high heel off. I mean, she would get in there. I mean, she was just like another Sherry Martel. She was tough. She was. That's just another tragic. A lot of tragedy in wrestling.
Yeah, no. But another one, too, that I didn't think of until now that really stands out to me, probably my favorite valet of all time, has got to be Stephanie McMahon when her and Triple H.
Okay.
In, 2000.
Okay.
When Triple H, pretty much became Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Yep.
And, he came out to My Time and he was, weaseling his way, becoming, WWF champion. Pretty much like having Stephanie, by his side, I think really elevated the game to where, it was at today. Because, do not get me wrong, D-Generation X is iconic, always will be one of the best factions in professional wrestling. But Triple H being a main event guy, he became that guy when Stephanie McMahon was by his side.
Oh, I agree with that. I definitely.
Best heels around that time.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. And he made everybody that was around him just better. You know what I mean?
No,
I mean,
absolutely.
look at what he did. Everybody that was around him just was better for him, for being around him. Like what he did with when he worked with DiBiase, Ted DiBiase Jr. and when he was with Flair. I mean, everybody he worked with. I mean, literally everybody that guy worked with became huge.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, they were obviously Ric Flair was big before that, but I mean, Triple H definitely is, and he's definitely doing some great stuff right now. So
yes, he is.
He's turning WWF back around, WWE back around. So
get the F in. So another valet I do want to talk about a little bit. She was in the Ruthless Aggression era, and I felt like I enjoyed her work more as a valet than a performer.
I know who you're going to say.
That is Melina.
Okay. Yep.
MNM.
Yes.
One of the most underrated tag teams in the Ruthless Aggression era, and I'm very surprised that Ben and I have not covered MNM at all in any of the We Are Wrestling talk show episodes.
I agree with you. They were great. Absolutely. We were watching it before we started taping, and their entrance, just incredible.
And like having Melina made that entire thing happen.
Yeah.
You had the paparazzi, you had the fluffy jackets, you had the tag titles like on their waist.
Yep.
Like in a whole different way.
Yep.
They had the look. They both were very shredded. You had Melina doing the splits, which of course, every freaking person in that crowd, all the guys are definitely staring.
Oh.
You have all the eyes on MNM, which, created a lot of heat. And it made them one of the best SmackDown tag team champions of all time.
I 120% agree. Absolutely.
And Melina always did a great job, like when it came to trying to get Batista to not take the tag titles off of Johnny Nitro and Jerry Mercury. She would try using her looks as a way to get MNM closer.
Yep. That's what a good manager of LA does.
And a newer one that needs to get some respect where it's due, because we don't really see valets that much anymore in the business, which, really sucks. But it's also really cool to see all these, women performers get to, show what they can do and, break barriers and, create new opportunities for themselves.
Absolutely.
One valet, though, that I need to, talk about before we move on to, the new school managers, the Miz's wife, Maurice.
Oh, absolutely.
I've enjoyed her work more as a valet than a performer. She's
Yes.
always very good during a time where, the WWE divas were not that good. So, she didn't really get to show what she can do, but I think having the Miz, by her side, it just, gives the Miz character another thing to hate.
You're right.
And
Yep.
Maurice has always been good at, creating heat.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Gosh, yeah. Absolutely.
And I think it really, makes the Miz, it gives the Miz another accolade to, brag into all the friggin' fans' face.
Yep. And that's more heat. And it's just, I mean.
And the best part that makes this work, the reality show, Miz and Mrs.
Yes. I was thinking about that.
They get sick of hearing about that. And I love the fact that they just shove it in your face.
Yeah. Yep. Just like Miz TV. I mean, come on, Every superstar there was so many great superstars back then, and they focused on the show. What happened in the ring took care of itself.
I have enjoyed tag team wrestling more now than I ever have in my entire life. And I think a lot of it has to do with AEW, tag team matches, especially the pay-per-views.
Those crowds back then, wrestling fans were wrestling fans.
With old school wrestling, the only thing I criticize is the pace of matches. I think when it comes to old school, it's, for me, a little too slow. Characters, on the other hand, they're on a whole nother level.
You could see your hands a little too close.
Honestly, I would rather take the belt that I'm wearing on my pants. I'd rather be representing that than the fucking the new WWE Championship, okay? New episodes of Old School versus New School air every Monday only on We Are Wrestling.
But one I thought of newer, not valet, but newer like managers. How about Don Callis?
Ooh.
The Jackal, baby.
The invisible hand.
Absolutely unbelievable on that mic. Man is fire on the mic.
Yes, Don Callis.
Yeah. I mean, Kenny Omega was great, but I mean, having him with Kenny Omega just made him a mega star. I mean, what a great pairing.
My God, Omega.
What a great pairing.
I gotta say, I really enjoyed it a lot with Don Callis, but something I want to know. Don Callis's career before AEW and being with Kenny Omega, what did he do in, the wrestling business before, being a manager for Kenny Omega?
He was the Jackal in the WWF.
So what, that was like a tag team faction, or?
No, it was, he was basically a commentator.
Oh, okay, I see. That's why he does a lot of the commentary stuff when Omega fights.
Yep. He had the long hair, and if you saw the picture of him, you'd be like, so I didn't even recognize him when he first came out. I was like, Don Cal was like, I know that this guy's awesome. And when I found out who he was, I was like, oh my gosh, it makes perfect sense. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now that we're talking about, new school managers, and you just mentioned Don Callis, another guy that I do want to talk about a little bit in AEW who had a really cool run, a short run, and that is the man, the founder of American Top Team, Dan Lambert.
Yes.
But here's the thing. I'm not going to talk about his AEW work because he did great on the mic for AEW, but I felt like having Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky as a random tag team with Lambert, I wasn't a fan of it because I really liked what they did with Lambert in Impact Wrestling.
It just
when
felt
Bobby
thrown
Lashley
together.
was, the walking weapon, and he was, the Armageddon. And Bobby Lashley, besides the run that he had with MVP with the Hurt Business, Impact Bobby Lashley, that man was on a different pedestal. And having Dan Lambert and American Top Team who have the mixed martial arts background like Bobby Lashley, it worked. And I wish that in AEW they had, Dan Lambert work with more fighting guys.
Yeah.
Like Bobby Fish. I feel like Bobby Fish could have definitely used a guy like Dan Lambert.
Sure.
Because he has that fighting background.
Right.
But in Impact Wrestling, Dan Lambert, with the stuff that he did with American Top Team and, invading the Impact Zone, and Lashley, having one of the most dominant world championship runs in his career, it was gold.
Literally.
Definitely recommend looking at that.
Yeah. Agree. Staying on AEW, managers, old school, one of my favorites. Double A, Arn Anderson, baby.
I knew you were going to go there with Arn Anderson. I will say, so my thoughts on, but I'd say before we talk about Arn Anderson, what are your thoughts on AEW with their managers? Because, of course, AEW definitely tried to take a different page out of WWE's book because WWE forgot about managers for a very long time until now. But AEW, they brought in a lot of legends and stuff as people's managers. We saw Hall of Famer Jake the Snake Roberts with Lance Archer. We saw Tully Blanchard with Shawn Spears and FTR. Mm-hmm. And we had Arn Anderson with Cody.
Yes.
What were your thoughts overall on a lot of these, managers that AEW is bringing in?
I loved it because it brought back managers. Something that WWE wasn't doing. What they were ignoring. They weren't giving a crap about. And at least AEW was trying to do something. And it was also giving these legends, something. It was giving these legends, maybe revamping their career a little bit, especially Jake, especially after all the hard work he did, with DDP and getting his life back on track after the drugs and everything and cleaning his life up and, finding God and everything. And I mean, you could tell just how happy he was. And that we were together when he came out for the first time. That pop, I mean, that was insane.
What a moment.
It was incredible. Incredible. I didn't see that coming.
Here's the thing that I really hate. One thing I hate about AEW. They always bring in talent, legends, whatever you want to call it. And then when they're done with the company, they don't put out a statement or anything. It's like a guessing game. And I really hate that.
Especially
we
being
have not seen Jake the Snake Roberts in such a long time. And I don't even know what the hell's going on with Jake.
Yeah, that's a good point. Especially being somebody like Tony Khan, because I mean, being the owner of a NFL team that deals with press stuff all the time, press releases. He does press releases on shit that nobody gives a crap about, but he doesn't. You're absolutely right. I was thinking about that I've been thinking about that for a while. Like, what the heck is going on with Jake? You know, that's a good point.
But I will say, back to Arn Anderson now, I liked, out of all the people that they did have as managers, I did love what Tully did with Sean Spears. In FTR, it was, cool. But I really enjoyed Sean Spears a little bit more. But when it comes to all the managers that they did have around, the early days of AEW, Arn Anderson for me was my favorite because with Cody Rhodes, I love the real in the American
There you go.
Nightmare.
Absolutely.
Arn Anderson was not just a normal manager.
He was like a
He was
coach.
his coach.
Yes.
And that's what made it so good because you had the Nightmare Factory.
Yes.
It would show Arn Anderson, after matches, pep talking with Cody. And that's like my vision for All Elite Wrestling at first.
Yes.
Was the real, the sports, the
Yes.
combat.
Yes.
And now we lost that shit.
Yep.
Literally.
With the records.
Ever since Cody left, it has not been the same.
No. We were so excited. Remember, we were like, "Oh, they're going to treat it like a real sport with the records and everything, and
the
everything's
refs are
matter."
going to actually put their foot
Yeah.
down and stuff.
Yep. No, it went
right after Cody left. That's where all the real went away, and now, sometimes AEW, yes, it's still professional wrestling because they focus on the wrestling board and the storylines,
right.
but they still have, when it comes to the segments, it comes off cartoony and lame.
Yep.
And with Arn Anderson, what I enjoyed was it was real. And I know he's still a part of AEW, which is good, and I feel like I know they got his son on the roster, and I know me and you were talking about this. So we went to a show. We talked about it in our first episode of, old school versus new school. We went to Big Time Wrestling last June. And I felt like Brock Anderson and Brian Pillman Jr., they should be an actual team in AEW.
I don't know why they're not. They were amazing together. They had great chemistry. And you know what? Think about it. Arn Anderson, 4 Horsemen. Pillman was in the Horsemen for a little while. I mean, you get that. Every time you get it like a second generation wrestlers together, or third, or whatever, it's always good for, it's always good for some. I think they had great chemistry. They had a great match with FTR.
They did, and that's the thing. It's crazy to see both Brian Pillman Jr. and Brock Anderson because they also did wrestle Ric Flair's last match.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to see that they're doing these matches on the indies and they're getting more attention, like being a tag team on the indies, than they are on AEW because, of course, you had Brock Anderson with Lee Johnson, but now Lee Johnson is with the Factory as of, the day we're recording this. And Brock Anderson's not really doing anything. And then, you have Brian Pillman Jr. teamed up with Griff Garrison, and let's be honest, it's just not working.
No.
And Brian Pillman Jr. is on a whole nother level than Griff.
Right. Well, Brock will be doing, when this comes out, will have been in that tag team, the Trip 6-man tag team with against Ricky Steamboat and FTR. Like we discussed earlier.
And I will say this, I really like how Brock Anderson is doing independent bookings because, of course, he's only doing Dark and Elevation, and that's not enough, in-ring work. So I like how he's actually taking bookings and, trying to craft his, work better, and having his dad with him
I love
at
it.
these shows is brilliant.
I love it because he's just like his dad. He's got that look. He's got that old school with the, the letters on the trunks and the boot. I mean, he just looks the part.
And he's starting to gain the weight too, which is good.
Yes, he's starting to bulk up a little bit. We were talking about that last year when we went. He was looking good. He's a very they always talk about it on the podcast. He's a very, very, very polite young man. He's very when we met him, he was very
Great
nice.
Conversation with him.
Yeah. Yep. He's very, very respectful. He respects the business, just like, he's definitely an Anderson. And
honestly, what they need to do with Brock Anderson, and maybe it's not Brian Pillman Jr., if they can find Brock Anderson the right tag team partner, I think he is going to be a really good tag team specialist talent.
Yeah.
I can't see him really being a mid-card title guy or even, a world champion.
No, I mean, his dad was really good on his own, but let's face, his dad was great television, my favorite television champion of all time. But let's put it this way. Him with Tully Blanchard was just another level as far as I'm concerned. They were just,
and I
he's
think
a great
him
tag
and
team.
Pillman Jr. have that potential.
Yeah,
and
they
that's
absolutely
the thing
did.
that I find absolutely crazy. And I hope before this comes out, Tony Khan finally makes a decision to pair the two up.
And what? And what's wrong with finding two other guys and doing the new Horsemen? You know what I mean? They could have back in WCW. They literally were throwing everything, taking every crappy wrestler they could. I'm surprised they didn't put Virgil in the Four Horsemen, for crying out loud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, so why not take Brock and Pillman Jr., and find two other young guys, maybe two other second generations, and form a real new Horseman,
Yeah,
Horseman names.
it's very, it has the potential of, happening.
You don't think that'll go over?
Yeah, but then you're going to have the internet trolls. They're going to be like, oh, we've already seen the Four Horsemen. We've seen Evolution.
Yeah, well, you know what? Who cares? They're just a bunch. Let them troll. That's what they do. I mean, that's, I mean, old school wrestling's got to come back. They just have that. I mean, if it works, it works.
We Are Wrestling Podcast.
That was absolutely executed perfectly, and in wrestling, timing is everything.
Let's flip this around and turn it on everybody's heads. I think that's a very real possibility.
If I ever go to a Comic-Con and Batista's there, that's going to be what I waste my question on. Is what was running through your head when that kid jumped in front of you and was just doing your fucking motion?
Do that? That's his buddy. This right here.
Exactly, bro. So what the fuck is the issue?
That was back in the day, when they would show the surgeries on video during those vignettes. The dude is a fucking star.
And I didn't see a 3D or I didn't see anything from them both. I would have been extremely fucking pissed. I know that for a fact.
Do you want this dude to snap his back?
Fan.
Literally, Vince McMahon is probably the most iconic villain in just the world at this point. You can open a fucking history book and Vince's name is somewhere in there about all the bad shit he's possibly fucking done.
AEW and WWE cannot come up with anything creative for this guy.
I do not think they need to focus on casual fans. They need to focus on hardcore fans. Hardcore fans are the ones that are going to bring the ratings.
Featuring your hosts, Ben, Danny, and Donnie. We are wrestling.
New episodes of the We Are Wrestling Talk Show air every Saturday, only on We Are Wrestling. Another, manager that I feel like is definitely underrated and goes unnoticed when it comes to the Ruthless Aggression era is Rico. Billy and Chuck.
Billy and Chuck.
Because, of course, everybody remembers Billy and Chuck in 2002. And the thing is, that Billy and Chuck thing, Rico was perfect for that. Because Rico pretty much wanted these two to, actually get married. And these two in their minds think that, we're just, best friends. And, we're going to be the best tag team champions and stuff.
Oh my goodness.
I felt like that was way too short, but it did have a really good start and a really good end.
It did. I mean, Billy Gunn can
work a lot more as a manager than a wrestler.
Yeah.
Because I know
it was a good fit.
On the SmackDown brand after that with Charlie Haas.
Yes.
And he, I think, won a tag team title or two with them. But I love the Billy and Chuck thing. It was brilliant.
It was great.
And, they were pretty much always trying to break barriers. And they did that with, the wedding of Billy and Chuck, which I can't wait until we cover, weddings towards Valentine's Day.
God. Yeah, it's going
to be a great episode. I cannot wait, Chaz.
Definitely. Oh my gosh. You know what? Speaking of valets and managers, you know who we forgot? Virgil.
Well, that sucks for Virgil.
He's Lonely Virgil, bro. Come on.
You should have definitely remembered Virgil. You're the one with the $1 Million Man brawling buddy behind you and the $1 Million title.
I know. I got the $1 Million Man back here.
In my old set.
Don't give me that look. Yes. Yeah, I know he's giving me dirt looks over here, but
yeah, so here's another guy I want to talk about before we get into the last guy that I feel like we definitely need to save for last. I want to talk about two guys here. MVP and Stokely Hathaway.
Sure.
Because right now I feel like besides the last person we're going to talk about, which I think everybody already knows, Paul Heyman. These two, I think, in my opinion, are probably the best managers right now. And it's kind of sad that these two are the best managers now because I feel like there's definitely some better ones out there. I think some wrestlers just need to hang the boots up and become managers. Because they have, the mic. They have the mics work,
Not to mention any names, Ric Flair.
So... I'm going to first start off by talking
I'm going to get
about
heat for that one.
Stokely Hathaway. Because I will say this with Stokely. I like how he is a real manager.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people enjoy his work. I'm not the biggest fan of Stokely Hathaway that much. But I will say what AEW has done so far, November 15th as we're recording this, with The Firm, I'm actually somewhat interested. And I want AEW to continue pushing it so that maybe I will like Stokely Hathaway more.
Right.
But besides him being just a typical manager, I feel like there's just nothing else to him.
No.
Him and MJF, though, they do have great chemistry, and I see that because they used to work with each other all the time in Limitless Wrestling.
Yeah.
I did like him and Jade Cargill, too.
Yeah, he's definitely a great manager. But he's I do agree that there's probably better, but right now, I mean, there's not too many to pick from, so but I think if they work on, like you said, if they continue to work on what they're doing with him, with The Firm and whatever, and furthering that along, I think it'll.
MVP. I gotta say, I loved the Hurt Business with Bobby Lashley, the Almighty, Cedric Alexander, Shelton Benjamin, and you had MVP, the head of the table, pretty much.
Yes.
And I loved what they did with him and Bobby Lashley. That's always going to be my favorite Bobby Lashley, was when he was a heel and he was the WWE champion with MVP by his side. Because MVP
with the suits and everything, I love that.
He was the perfect mouthpiece for him.
Yep.
And then they had to fuck it all up and have him be with the freaking Green Giant Omos. Freaking top 500 worst wrestlers in 2022. Ranked number 2. Number 1 is Satnam Singh from AEW. Oh, there's a freaking manager right there. Sanjay Dutt. He fucking sucks. All right, so with, MVP, I gotta say, I was enjoying his work a lot until they paired him up with Omos. I get it. Omos can't talk. He needs a mouthpiece.
Yeah.
Why the fuck would you break something that was not broken with Bobby Lashley and MVP?
Absolutely. Because that's what WWE does.
No sense. And it's crazy because we really need more managers, because that's the reason why I said what I said about Stokely and MVP. Because we're talking about all of these greats. And Old School in this episode is kicking New School's ass when it comes to managers. Truthfully.
Yeah. I mean, just because I'm on the Old School side doesn't mean that I don't, love a lot of stuff in the New School. And
exactly, and it's vice versa too.
Yeah, exactly. So, but these new managers need to take some, some lessons or take some notes from the old school managers for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, our main event topic here for old school versus new school. There's one manager that we saved for last, and he was a part of old school, and he was also a part of new school. And I feel like right now he's definitely doing some of the best work in his career. And a lot of people are saying he is the greatest manager in wrestling, period.
And one of the greatest minds in wrestling also, period.
Ladies and gentlemen, his name is Paul Heyman.
Heyman.
Chaz Heyman. How do you feel when people compare you to Paul Heyman? I want your first thoughts on that.
Nobody compares me to Paul Heyman except you.
Not just me.
Not just me. No, it was you and the rest of the guys in DITV1.
Oh, and also our other We Are Wrestling guys that work for the channel as well. They also think you look like Paul Heyman.
No, I could see a cross between Paul Heyman and
Father James Mitchell.
Yes.
Loved his work with Abyss.
Yes. TNA. He is the creator of the dirty deeds, my friend. Yes. That's totally Serge Abajian.
Definitely.
But yeah.
What were some of the early days stuff with Paul Heyman that you enjoyed?
Paul Heyman, I loved when Paul Heyman had the mullet and he used to have the cell phone.
Paulie Dangerous, right?
Paulie Dangerously, baby. Loved it. Loved it. I mean, it was very similar to the Jim Cornette character. And it was just I love that kind of stuff. I loved what he did.
He managed young Stone Cold Steve Austin in WCW.
He managed a lot of people.
Stunning Steve.
He managed Stunning Steve. He managed I think he actually managed The Undertaker.
Yeah, at one point
I think he managed Mean Mark Callis. Yep. There's like two other guys that he managed too that I hadn't realized, and I was like, wow. I forgot about. I had forgotten about. But yeah, a lot of people that went on to become like really huge, legends. But what he did with Brock was just incredible.
And that's where I was going to get into was Brock Lesnar, because I think there was no better guy for Brock Lesnar at the time than Paul Heyman.
Absolutely.
And it really opened up a lot of doors for Paul Heyman because, of course, he did, promote. He was, the promoter and, the founder of ECW.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, he, ECW went downhill. WWF bought ECW, and then we saw, Paul Heyman do some commentary work. It was all right. But then when he, became Brock Lesnar's manager, that's where a
next
lot
level
of doors opened.
Yep, next level, definitely.
And still to this day, Paul Heyman is, been having a successful run. Not because, of course, Brock and him, they split up. They're out doing their own thing now, which I think Brock Lesnar is having one of the best, runs in his career.
I love the new Brock Lesnar. I love the face Brock Lesnar. I think it's some. I didn't think it was gonna work at first, but they definitely did the right thing.
And I think they definitely did do the right thing because at first with Roman Reigns having Paul Heyman, I did not like it whatsoever.
No, I didn't either.
Now with the bloodline, with how strong they are, having Paul Heyman, call him the tribal chief.
Yep.
And the head of the table and, bowing down to him like he's a master. I love it. And
Love
the
it.
whole thing with the bloodline and with New School has been absolutely incredible. All the guys have been incredible.
Oh, it's
Solo Sikoa, man, looks like a dominant beast. You
Yeah.
have Jimmy and Jey Uso going on, I think, their best tag team run, even though we
Yes.
all know Jay will always be better than Jimmy.
Yes.
And then you have Sami Zayn, who is doing the best work in his career. And I still think to this day, Sami Zayn should be the one to take the title off of Roman, but that's a hot take, and that is not for Old School versus New School.
No. But Sami Zayn is one of the most entertaining wrestlers in the
He's the most
world.
entertaining guy right now in professional wrestling.
Period. Yes.
Right now, as we're recording this, and I'm
Yep.
sure he still is going to be
Yep.
by the time this gets uploaded.
Even Cornette said that. So.
And he hated El Generico and hated Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
But with Paul Heyman, it's incredible to see the career he's had. You know, Paulie, Dangerously, and, you know, creating ECW, which,
Yep.
you know, changed the business.
Yeah, from nothing. He created it from nothing, you know. And I mean, he just, you know, with all these guys on his back, and I mean, he just ECW, you know, put out some of the most iconic guys. I mean, Rob Van Dam, you know, Mankind was there, or Mick Foley, you know, Cactus Jack, whatever.
Stone Cold, that's where he became Stone Cold.
Stone Cold, yeah. I mean, just a lot of people were there that, you know, just when I go back and watch, I'm like, I forgot they were there. It's like ECW, you know, I'm not the biggest hardcore fan in the world, but you know, I go back and I like the old school ECW stuff, definitely.
And that's the thing with Paul Heyman. He's just had an incredible run. And even the time where he managed CM Punk, that was also really cool in, you know, 2000, I believe it was 2012. In 2013 when, you know, Paul Heyman aligned himself with Punk. And, like, with Paul Heyman, he's always been so good at not only managing his clients, telling a story.
Yes.
And that's what it all comes back to.
Yes.
Is telling a story. And out of all of these managers that we talked about, nobody, in my opinion, besides Bobby Heenan and maybe Paul Bearer, did it better than Paul Heyman.
Yes. Yes, I agree. Absolutely. 120. I agree.
And I see why a lot of people have Paul Heyman, you know, on their Mount Rushmores of managers.
Yeah.
Definitely on mine.
For sure. And he's just, again, not just manager. He's just one of the most brilliant minds in wrestling, period.
Absolutely.
You know, being a writer, I mean, helps with those story, you know, telling the story. I mean, definitely.
And he's just a real manager at the end of the day, too.
Yeah, he is. He's just, and he knows how to piss people off. And, he just knows how to get under people's skin, and he just makes those gross faces, and you just want to freaking kick him in the, you know, you just want to kick him in the freaking chops. But
oh wait, are you talking about Paul Heyman or are you talking about JBL? I gotta say, he is doing really good with Baron Corbin though on Raw. I love the insults.
Oh, you're gonna talk about it, his chubby fingers. But anyways, no, I would definitely want to keep JBL in the face, but he's not as bad as John Laurinaitis.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to add to this episode, or you think we covered it all?
Man, I think we covered everything and then some. I mean, if we are wrestling maniacs, if there's any managers, who's your favorite manager? Let us know down in the comments. You know, we want to know, you know, definitely get in on these discussions. And, you know, what's your favorite, and what was your favorite, moment in that manager's history? You know, definitely let us know. But I think we covered,
sure. But if you guys enjoyed this episode of Old School versus New School. Make sure to smash that like button now. If you're not a We Are Wrestling Maniac yet already, subscribe, turn on the post notifications. Links down in the description below. You can go follow Chaz over on his social medias, and you can also follow me on my social medias and other YouTube pages. All that down below. And of course, to all the We Are Wrestling Maniacs out there worldwide, we are taking over.
Taking over.
Peace.
Peace.